Hey there guys, alright, today, for the first time ever, we're doing a re-react. Mainly because I messed up the first time, and I watched this video before I should have, instead of going through the whole series. Anyways, we're finally here at Napoleonic Wars, Battle of Waterloo, 1815. Did watch this few months ago. I completely forgot what happened. Well, I forget what information Epic History TV covered. I forget things pretty fast. Anyways, let's go ahead, just dive right in. The Battle of Waterloo.
April 1814. For 10 years, one man has dominated Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French. Under his military genius, France conquered an empire that spanned the continent. But finally, he has been defeated by a grand coalition of his enemies. Napoleon is forced to abdicate.
Hold on, this video is older than the other parts of this series, isn't it? This seems very different.
And exiled to the tiny island of Elba, while the Bourbon monarchy is restored to France in the corpulent form of Louis XVIII. But rumors soon reached Napoleon that France would welcome his return. The French people have little love for the monarchy or its hangers-on, the very people whose excesses led to the French Revolution 25 years before. He also learns that at the Congress of Vienna, his enemies are locked in bitter dispute over the future of Europe. Napoleon decides...
I love his little art here with... This is why he's just like, I see you. I'm on the island, but I see you.
...to act. After
Stupid.
just 10 months in...
I love political art like that or whatever.
In exile, he returns to France, where the troops sent to arrest him rally to his cause instead.
Which is just crazy to me. Like, it should still be fresh in the minds of maybe not all of these soldiers, because it's been a little bit since, you know, he was emperor of France and led them on that war path. But still, a lot of those soldiers should still remember it and be a bit up, you know, because it did bring a lot of troubles to France, right? A lot of economic problems. So, like, I mean, I can understand why they would still like Napoleon, but like, to rally so much behind him, and I don't know, it's I can see why, but I also don't get it.
France soon follows suit. But in Vienna, the coalition immediately put their differences to one side. They declare Napoleon
the one man that could get Europe to work together,
an outlaw, and mobilize their forces for war. Napoleon knows he must act boldly before the coalition launches a coordinated invasion of France. He counts on winning a quick victory and then negotiating peace from a position of strength. He targets,
much like how the last war ended, or how he wanted it to end,
the coalition armies within easiest reach: Prince Blucher's Prussian army and the Duke of Wellington's Anglo-Allied army, both camped in Belgium. Napoleon's force is a match for either coalition army on its own, but he'll be heavily outnumbered if they're able to join forces, so he must keep them apart and defeat each in turn.
15th of June, 1815, Napoleon invades the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Oh boy. Here we go. Ooh, this is shaky zoom in, I like it. The music, let's go. Oh, I just love their animation. I just love Epic History. I think they definitely deliver probably the highest quality videos, history videos on YouTube. I don't think there's, all of the channels, of course, that I watch are good. But like, these Epic History TV just brings it to just a whole nother level.
Napoleon's army crosses the frontier near Charleroi. intending to drive a wedge between the two coalition armies. The next day, Napoleon sends his left wing under Marshal Ney to take the crossroads at Quatre Bras.
Marshal Ney, real homie, still staying loyal to Napoleon.
There, Ney clashes with Wellington's army, still scrambling into position. The Allied troops fight off a series of French attacks and just manage to hold their ground. The same day, Napoleon attacks Blücher's Prussian army with his main force near the village of Ligny. The battle is a brutal slugging match, but the French emerge triumphant. The 72-year-old Blücher leads a cavalry charge in person and has his horse killed under him. He only just escapes capture.
How the fuck is that 72-year-old man still like... That's impressive. That's fucking impressive.
The Prussian army retreats, but it is not broken. Napoleon sends his right wing under Marshal Grouchy to keep them on the run, and turns his own attention to Wellington's army. The British general doesn't receive news of Blücher's defeat until the next morning, at which point he orders a retreat through heavy summer showers to a position 8 miles south of Brussels, near the village of Waterloo. There he receives a promise from Blücher that the Prussians will march to his aid the next morning. So Wellington decides to stand and fight. Wellington has chosen his battlefield with care. His troops are behind a gentle ridge which will give them some shelter from French cannon fire. His right flank is anchored on the farmhouse of Hougoumont, his centre on the farm of La Haye-Sainte, and his left on the farm of Papelotte. All three are fortified and garrisoned with elite troops.
Ooh, okay.
Wellington's men need every advantage they can get. The opposing armies are roughly equal in size, but his is a ragtag mix of British, Dutch, and German troops, many of whom have never seen combat before. They will have to hold off Napoleon's army of veterans until Prussian reinforcements arrive.
Well, a bunch of these are veterans because remember, at the end of the... See, this is where I'm a little confused on. I would like to hear from someone that may perhaps answer this. Towards the end of Napoleon's first war, you know, after the Battle of Leipzig and stuff, because of the defeats he was suffering, a lot of his army was no longer veterans. But now he has an army of like 70,000 veterans here, whereas before he was struggling to have an army of veterans. Like, is my like, you know, I guess maybe once the war is over, this is the hodgepodge of veterans that fought, you know, in the South. You got veterans that fought in the East or whatever. I'm a little confused.
Or the battle, and probably the war, will be lost.
Sunday, the 18th of June, 1815, Waterloo.
Sunday dawns bright and fair. Napoleon has ordered Marshal Grouchy to pursue the Prussians and keep them busy, while he defeats Wellington's army at Waterloo and opens the road to Brussels. But it's Grouchy who gets pinned down, fighting the Prussian rearguard at Wavre. The main Prussian force eludes him and is already marching to Wellington's aid.
Maybe he should have sent Marshal Ney instead of Marshal Grouchy.
At Waterloo, Napoleon delays his attack, waiting for the ground to dry, which will make movement easier for his troops. But the lost hours will later prove costly. The battle begins around 11 a.m., when Napoleon orders a feint against Wellington's right flank at Hougoumont. He hopes Wellington will commit his reserves here, drawing them away from the centre, where the main blow will fall. But Hougomont's British and German defenders cling on desperately throughout the day. At one point, the French force their way through the main gate, but it's shut behind them, and the intruders are all killed.
God.
Wellington later calls it the decisive moment of the battle. Around noon, 80 French cannon open fire against the main Allied line. Most of Wellington's men are out of sight on the reverse slope, but many cannonballs still find their mark, smashing bloody holes in the Allied ranks. At 1:30 p.m., Napoleon sends in his infantry. The French columns are met by disciplined musket fire, and then charged by British heavy cavalry. The French attack disintegrates as Napoleon's men try to save themselves from the crushing hooves and flashing sabres. Scores of Frenchmen are ridden down, and 2 of their famous Eagle standards are captured.
Uh-oh. Not the Eagles.
But the British cavalry, exhilarated by success, charge too far. They become scattered, their horses blown. At their most vulnerable, they're countercharged by French cavalry and suffer terrible losses. Among the dead, Major General Sir William Ponsonby, commander of the Union Brigade. Around 4 p.m., Marshal Ney thinks he sees the Allies begin to retreat and leads a mass cavalry charge to drive home the advantage. But Ney is wrong.
Oh no.
The Allied infantry are ready, formed in hollow squares with bayonets fixed. The French cavalry can't break into these impregnable formations. They can only circle impotently until they retreat or are shot from the saddle. Ney's failure to support this attack with either infantry or artillery is a serious blunder.
Yeah, that's a lot of cavalry loss. There goes a lot of the ability to maneuver and flank. Ouch.
Meanwhile, Blücher's Prussians have begun to arrive. They capture the village of Plancenoit, threatening Napoleon's flank and forcing him to send reserves to recapture it. Around 6 p.m., French infantry finally capture the farmhouse of La Haye-Sainte in the center of the battlefield. It allows the French to bring forward artillery and blast the Allied squares from close range. They can't miss the closely packed formations, and casualties quickly mount. It begins to seem that if Wellington's army doesn't retreat, it will be killed where it stands. But the situation for Napoleon is also desperate. The Prussians are arriving in force, and he's running out of men to throw against Wellington's army. So he turns to his ultimate reserve, the elite Imperial Guard, the most feared troops in Europe.
Dun, dun, dun.
At 7:30 p.m., 3,000 of these battle-hardened veterans march past
3,000 against what number does Wellington have? Like, probably along this line, 40,000 here, maybe more.
Past their emperor and across the corpse-strewn battlefield towards the Allied center. Wellington's redcoats rise to meet them and pour devastating volleys of musket fire into their ranks. When the Allies fix bayonets and prepare to charge, the Imperial Guard wavers and then retreats.
The Imperial Guard? They retreated.
Wellington, sensing victory, orders a general advance. About the same time, the Prussians recapture Plancenoit. News of the Imperial Guard's defeat and rumors of encirclement by the Prussians sweep through the French ranks.
Yeah, that's a mass
Panic
rout.
breaks out, and the French army flees the battlefield. Only Napoleon's old guard maintain their discipline, mounting a heroic but doomed rearguard action. Napoleon himself is forced to abandon his carriage and barely escapes the pursuing Prussian cavalry. The battle is won. The Duke of Wellington and Prince Blücher meet and congratulate each other outside Napoleon's former headquarters, an inn called La Belle Alliance. Blücher thinks it's the perfect name for their shared victory, but Wellington prefers the more English-sounding Waterloo, where he has his own headquarters. The Battle of Waterloo was, in the words of the Duke of Wellington, a damned near-run thing. It was also one of the bloodiest battles of the age. Around 50,000 men were killed or wounded, 23,000 coalition casualties,
Wow.
27,000 French. Due to an appalling shortage of medical care, many of the wounded were left lying on the battlefield for several days.
Several days.
Napoleon was utterly defeated. Unable to raise another army, he surrendered to the British. They transported him to a second exile on the tiny, remote Atlantic island of St. Helena. This time there was no escape.
Nope.
He died there 6 years later. Waterloo marked the beginning of a period of relative peace in Europe. There were no wars between the great powers for 40 years, and the British would not fight on the continent for another 100 years, until the summer of 1914.
Wow.
40 years after the battle, a pioneer in the new art of photography captured these remarkable images. They're veterans of Napoleon's armies, by then all old men in their 70s and 80s.
This is just cool.
Among them, Sergeant Tanya of the Imperial Guard, Moray of the 2nd Regiment of Hussars,
this is
and
so cool.
Verline of the 2nd Guard Lancers. These faces are a tantalizing link to the dramatic events that shaped the course of history 2 centuries ago.
And like, what's also really cool about those photos, it really just shows how not long ago it was, right? Because we had photos in the 19th century, right? Mid 1800s. And that's not that long ago. Cameras aren't that, you know, old. I mean, yeah, it may seem a bit old now, obviously, because I was like almost, obviously, the Battle of Waterloo is is 2 centuries old now. But yeah, that's only 200 years. That's not that long. That's like maybe 6, 7 generations ago. Like, I'm talking like great 5, 6 great grandparents ago. That's not that far. So yeah, that was the Napoleonic Wars, Battle of Waterloo 1815 re-reacted. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.